Good afternoon, brothers and sisters. It's been a long time, having been away for the last, now it's about 10, 11 months that I've been back in the last 2. Brethren, Paul wrote to the saints in Corinth the first time, and he said, even in the case of lifeless instruments, such as the flute or harp, how will anyone recognize the tune, that is the tune they are playing, unless the notes are distinct? Again, if the trumpet sounds a muffled call, who will prepare for battle? This is 1 Corinthians 14, 7 and 8. For Jeremiah, it was for him disturbing when he could clearly hear the trumpet sound. And he said, my anguish, I writhe in pain. Oh, the pain in my chest. My heart pounds within me. I cannot be silent. For I have heard the sound of the horn, the alarm of battle. This is Jeremiah 4:19. And for Jeremiah's contemporary, that is Ezekiel, Yahweh gave him a stern warning. And we read, the word of Yahweh came to me, that is Ezekiel, son of man, speak to your people and say to them, if I bring the sword upon a land, and the people of the land take a man from among them to make him their watchman, and if he sees the sword coming upon the land and blows the trumpet and warns the people, then if anyone who hears the sound of the trumpet does not take the warning, the sword comes and takes him away. His blood will be upon his own head. He heard the sound of the trumpet and did not take warning. His blood shall be upon himself. But if he had taken warning, he would have saved his life. But if the watchman sees the sword coming and does not blow the trumpet, so that the people are not warned, and the sword comes and takes any one of them, that person is taken away in his iniquity. But his blood, I, Yahweh, will require at the watchman's hand. So you, son of man, that is Ezekiel, Yahweh said, I have made a watchman for the house of Israel. Whenever you hear a word from my mouth, you shall give them warning for me. Brethren, this can be daunting for any such watchman. To sound the trumpet at the right time. The sound must be right. Else, we go back to where we started. If the trumpet sound a muffled call, who's going to prepare? Who's going to get ready for anything? And if you read Numbers chapter 10, you get the differences in trumpets. Because it wasn't just one trumpet, one type of blow. It was different kinds. Blown 1, 2, blown long, blown short, different message. So, my brethren, I humbly stand before this holy assembly of the saints of God, the bride of Christ, Christ's very own body, the temple of our God, God's holy habitation, kings and priests of the kingdom, holy nation. What else shall I say, brethren? I stand before you to sound the alarm and to propose a course of action. At least, if for nothing, the responsibility would have probably shifted. I guess from what we've read this far, you know what I'm getting at. Shall we look at Psalm 2? David writing in Psalm number 2. And what do we read? Why do the nations rage and the people plot a vain thing? The kings of the earth set themselves, and the rulers take counsel together against Yahweh and against his anointed, saying, let us break their bonds in pieces and cast away their cords from us. Why is that rage? Where is it coming from? And why is that rage targeted against Yahweh and his anointed? Brethren, the kings of this world conspire. They take counsel one another. Why all those conspiracies? I'm talking about real conspiracies. We live in a time that is thrown upon us. And we have said it right at the beginning, at least based on my understanding, that this is the slate of evil hand, the conspiracy, the real conspiracy of the kings and the nations of this earth against our God and his anointed. And I'm trying to just break it down a little bit to events, to things that have happened, that we, as many as are old enough, are living witnesses. Because it has been said from this podium in this same congregation that we have to watch events. Because we're going to go through a lot of massive changes, and all of them are going to come through events. So, real world events. A brief account of the story of September 11th. I'm not going to go into the story, what happened, planes crashes into the Twin Towers in the United States. But for me, it's neither here nor there. What is important is the event. Who caused it? why it was caused, who is to blame, that is none of my business at this point. My business is what happened after that event. What is the big change in the United States and around the world after that event? United States got a homeland security department out of that, heavily funded. Surveillance, including surveilling United States' own citizens, became a thing in vogue. Anti and counter terrorism became an international phenomenon. And according to Human Rights Watch, and that was even some years ago, they found that there are 144 nations in this world that passed or revised some anti-terrorism legislation. And they have reviewed 130 nations and their anti-terrorism legislations. And what they found is that all of them contain one or more provisions that opened the door for abuse. The elements that raised grave human rights concern included overly broad and vague definitions of terrorism, such as disrupting the public order, as well as sweeping powers for warrantless search and arrest, the use of secret evidence, the immunity of police who abuse the laws, and others. And then they make a note that many of the measures that were passed as a result of 9/11, they were the result of United Nations Security Council resolutions that ordered states of the United Nations to pass counter-terrorism laws after September 11, with little regard to rights protection. Brethren, this is all that I can do with 9/11. As I said, I'm not interested in any other arguments, any other debate. If you want to have it, you can have it. But my beef is what happened after the fact. This cannot be denied. Including even a last sitting government, the same United States using these laws to muffle him. Look, these are real realities. Why did the nations rage? Why did the nations conspire that every nation needed a law on terrorism? One, because it's a threat. And we all went through it, code red, blue, yellow, whatever. And we were scared to the point that if we didn't have these counter-terrorism laws, we're not going to be safe until we are safe now. Wasn't the last time you heard a threat of terrorism? When was the last time? Because now we're safe because we got laws. And the terrorists know that they are lost, so they can't be terrorists anymore. Brethren, that is what the nations conspire to do. And living testimony, you see a government that just passed in the United States using terrorism law and branding some people and say they are a terrorist group. Oh, some people were happy. And then the tide turned and another government came and you look at the other side and say, you are also terrorist groups. See what they're playing with? They're playing with something that has been set up for a purpose. What about now? What is our story now? On the 26th of September, when the United Nations was meeting, the Prime Minister of Great Britain was his time to give his speech. And he gave account of the new things that are going on, the technology and everything that's going on, and fearing how if we're not able to counter those threats of innovation, we stand the risk to lose our values, our freedoms, and all that we cherish. I'm just going to give snapshots of some of those things that would not be necessarily unknown to us. But just to buttress the point, what is going on now, and to segue into the main issue. He said that there are things that he could do, but right now there's something he can't take his eyes off. He said, you may keep secrets from your friends, from your parents, from your children, from your doctor, even your personal trainer, but it takes a real effort to conceal your thoughts from Google. And if that is true today, he said, in future, there may be nowhere to hide. And this was September 2020. And I'm asking myself, how much future was he talking about? In future? Which future? It's now. He said smart cities would pullulate with sensors, all joined together by Internet of Things. Bollards communing invisibly with lampposts. But this technology could also be used to keep every citizen under round-the-clock surveillance. A future Alexa will pretend to take orders, but this Alexa will be watching you. In the future, voice connectivity will be in every room and almost every object. Your mattress will monitor your nightmares. Your fridge will beep for more cheese. Your front door will sweep wide and the moment you approach. Your smart meter will go hustling for the cheapest electricity. But every one of them minutely transcribing your every habit in tiny electronic shorthand. And where are they going to keep it? Not in their chip or in their innards. Nowhere you can find it, but in some great cloud of data that lures over more oppressively over the human race. A giant cloud, thunder cloud, waiting to burst, and we have no control over how or when the precipitation will take place. Boris Johnson bemoaned. And he said, but we are ourselves becoming resource. And he said, we already use all kinds of messaging devices that offer instant communication at minimal cost. The same programs, platforms could also be designed for real-time censorship of every conversation with offending words automatically deleted. Indeed, in some countries, this happens today, as of the time you were speaking. Digital authoritarianism is not, alas, the stuff of dystopian fantasy, but of an emerging reality. And he said, the reason I'm giving this speech today is that the UK is one of the world's tech leaders. And I believe governments have been simply caught unawares by the unintended consequences of the internet. A few more. Today, nanotechnology, as I mentioned earlier, is revolutionizing medicine by designing robots a fraction the size of a red blood cell, capable of swimming through your bodies, dispensing medicine and attacking malignant cells like some Star Wars armada. It's bigger than atomic age. AI, what will it mean? Helpful robots washing and caring for an aging population? Or a pink-eyed Terminator sent back from the future to call the human race? What will synthetic biology stand for? Restoring our lives and our eyes with miracle regeneration of the tissues like some fantastic hangover cure? Or will it bring terrifying limbless chicken to our tables? Will nanotechnology help us to beat disease? Or will it leave tiny robots to replicate in the crevices of our cells? This is prophetic man. Social prophet. And so the prime minister gave this account. And if you didn't hear anything at all, you hear surveillance. And I told you 9/11, what came out of it? Surveillance. You see, it is in the habit of kings and nations to conspire always against the people of God. Joshua chapter 9, verse 1 and 2, when Israel was settling in the new land, and when they had settled some people beyond the Jordan and on the other side of the Jordan, and it happened when all the kings who were on this side Jordan, in the hills and in the valleys and in all the coasts of the Great Sea over against Lebanon heard, the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites, the Perizzites, the Hivites, and the Jebusites, they all with one mind gathered themselves to fight with Joshua and with Israel. It is in DNA of kings of this world to try and wreak havoc on the people of God. Even in the life of our brethren in the first century, even among their own leaders, people in authority, do conspire. Acts 18:12. You can refer to these scriptures because I'll read them quickly in the interest of time. So Acts 18:12. Paul is being accused that he's introducing the people of Israel to worship God that is contrary to the law. And when Gallio was the deputy of Achaia, the Jews made insurrection with one accord against Paul. conspiring, taking counsel together, agreeing with one mind. And they brought him to the judgment seat. This is people against the bride of Christ. Acts 19:29. This is in Ephesus. When Paul is, Paul's companions were confronting Demetrius, who is making things for Diana. And then Demetrius go and complain that if you don't confront these men, we're going to lose our trade. We're going to lose business. And so 1929, and the whole city was filled with confusion. And having caught Gaius and Aristarchus, men of Macedonia, Paul's companions in travel, they rushed with one accord into the theater, conspiring, agreeing, working together in unison for purposes of attacking the people of God. So this is not anything new, as David gave us, and we've seen that play out in our history. First century, it's happened after that, and it's still ongoing. So we are in this era that I call the Pando era. The Pando era. And I still ask myself, why are the kings of this earth still raging? Why are they still conspiring? Why are they still taking these conglomerate decisions that is not in the interest of the bride of Christ? And once again, I'm not going to dwell on the Pando issues. But my interest is what is happening after the panda was declared. And I guess everybody is hearing me using pseudo words, right? So I don't want to get confused when I say a word that I expect you to know what I'm talking about. I'm doing that because I don't want the YouTube to be taken off. You got to be smart. I've heard some guys doing that. They never mention the V word. They always say the pandemic panacea. And everybody who listens to this gentleman knows what he's talking about. And I think AI will not understand that. While supply still lasts, you can have the reduced sale. So why are the nations raging? We shall all truly, this is something we say in my background, and maybe it's in other backgrounds, I don't know. It's a proverb that says, literally, we only get to know the full length of the frog after it dies. So all of us, we're going to be living witnesses. We'll know everything. So we'll see. But in terms of what is going on now, keep in mind what we just said about 9/11 era. Before the threat went away, they knew that all the mechanisms that they needed were in place. You see how nice we travel these days? Who complains about how we travel a year before? Who complained? Nobody. Take off your shoes, take off your belt, no water into the plane. Who complained last year? We only complain what is happening now, but who complained about not taking water into the plane? But we used to take water into the plane. So when that change gradually got into our skin and we ask no questions anymore, the threat is gone. There's nobody entering the plane with bomb in a shoe. Because you now take your shoe, everybody take off their shoes. What I'm saying is that what we're experiencing now, until the social, until the economic, until the scientific, until the technological, until the political change happens, our new reset life will not begin. Because the changes are based on blueprints, and the blueprints are available. So people can tell where we're going, unless you don't want to look. So when you layer what is happening in COVID with climate, then you begin to see where we need to be getting worried. The agenda setting agents see doing nothing as being beneficial to the earth's health because they didn't know. So just because of COVID, all of a sudden, if people are not doing anything, it helps the climate. And there's nothing in the Bible I know about doing nothing that is equivalent to Sabbath observance. Surely it has been mooted by no mean persons as solution. And we know that people in the end of the age who are being persecuted, the bride of Christ, are people who are Christ-believing, commandment-observing people. So you know where to slot yourself, where you fall, and whether you are going to be subject to persecution or not. So having said these, and that's all I want to say, because life is unfolding. But the only thing that I will add to all of us, people of God, is that don't let us make a mistake talking about who caused 9/11, who killed who planted what, who didn't do what, where did they come from, and not focusing on what happened after 9/11. So don't get into issues of wearing mask, no wearing mask, vaccination, no vaccination. Those are not the issues. The issues are what is being put in place whilst those things are being done. Because those things are towards shaping you to an end. Please, that is not the issue. And that is why I want to sound the alarm and say, people of God, let's look farther into what is going to happen and work our work and see where we stand and do what we do. And that brings me to my sister's song. She almost brought me to tears. Look, love is important. And it's going to weave into my second part, which is what is the way forward? If this is the prognosis, what is our way forward? And I got only one way forward. I don't get two. I got only one way forward. And that one way forward is that we need to be united. Oneness. We need to orchestrate one accord among us. Beyond that, we fail. Beyond that, there's nothing. Because you will realize that within that one accord is the love. It's the love. Let's turn to Ephesians 4. Ephesians chapter 4. And we will stay in there, read as much as we can, and that will be bringing us to the end. Brethren, in Ephesians 4, Paul starts by saying, therefore, my beloved and long for brethren. Oh, sorry, I'm reading Philippians. That could be good too. Ephesians 4. I therefore, the prisoner of the Lord, beseech you to walk worthy of the calling with which you were called. And last week, you remember I was alerting my elder about you, plural, you, singular. Here, please, think, group think. Think, us think. Don't think, me think. So the calling which we were called. And as we're doing this, we do it with all lowliness and gentleness, with long suffering, and in that bearing with one another in love. That's a lot of values packed in a sentence. Gentleness, forbearance, and love. You can go to the fruit of the Spirit, and you begin seeing that he's talking about the very nature of God put in you by his Spirit. So through these values, we need to evaluate, look at the calling with which he called us. Out of that love, hanging there, what was the benefit to him except to us? So that love, which God now implant in us by his Spirit, we need to exercise that law in bearing with me. That is hard to bear with, but you got to bear with me in love. And if it's harder for me to bear with you, I can only cope by doing it in love. We owe each other love. And that's what Paul said. Don't owe anything to anybody except the love that we have to love one another. And doing that, he said, he continued, whilst we're bearing one another, we are endeavoring to keep the unity of the Spirit in the bond of peace. If I tell you, my sister, my brother, please endeavor to do this, I'm not saying it's something that is a cheesy thing for you to do. You have to be diligent in doing that. You have to apply yourself in doing it. If we want to keep the spirit of unity or the unity of the Spirit, it's a big endeavor. It doesn't come cheap. We need all the diligence that we can put into building that value system between and among us. And this unity of the Spirit, you have to understand it because we're talking about one body. There is one body and one Spirit, just as you were called in one hope of your calling. And that hope is because you have one Lord, one faith, one immersion into water and bringing you up. One God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in you all. That is like the hope, the end of our calling, that we would have achieved this. Oneness of our God, oneness of our enterprise of getting into Him, the immersion experience, the one faith, which we understand is that we need to earnestly contend for that faith once delivered unto those ahead of us, by extension for all of us. My brethren, but to each one of us, grace has been given according to the measure of Christ's gift. And I'm going to jump to 11 because the interjection there at this point is not going to do much to what we're doing. It's good for drawing attention to the Old Testament and what Christ did, but I jump to 11. And He Himself gave some to be apostles, some prophets, some evangelists, some pastors and teachers, for the reason what? For what? For the equipping of us. These gifts were given to equip us. For what? We're equipped for what? Equipped that we can serve. Serve. For ministry. Work of ministry. Work of service. And for what? For the edifying, the upliftment of you and the rest of the body. Because you're also part of the body. So you're doing that service because you've been equipped so that the body will flourish. The body will receive encouragement. The body will receive understanding. The body would be at peace. There would be good nourishment. The body would be edified. And the body being edified until when? For how long? Till we all come to the unity of the faith and of the knowledge of the Son of God. And let me stop there. Brethren, I propose to you, this is the type of unity that we have to seek. Your growth, my growth. That is the unity. Unity for us is not the coming together of groups. That is not unity. That is amalgamation. Our unity is the body getting to that limit, growing till you, me, come to that unity measurable only to the perfect man. And who is that perfect man? To the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. That's when you know you are united. We got to get to the stature and the measure of the fullness of Christ. Because ask yourself, how do you unite one? How do you unite one? This unity we're talking about is about one. Because the body is one. But we are still being called to unite. How does one unite? So it throws away the concept thinking that there's one here, there's one there, three bodies, they come together. And we do it. We say, oh, church 2, church 3, church 4, they have come together. They are united. You don't understand? You just amalgamated organizations together. But the body could still be suffering and not growing and not going anywhere. And if you don't do that, there is no unity. And if we get that unity as we go, you see how it operates. Everything is there. It's not me. And he continues and he says that we should no longer be children tossed to and fro and carried about with every wind of doctrine by the trickery of men in the cunning craftiness of the deceitful plotting. Because your unity in the faith is also of the knowledge of the Son of God. And when you get to that unity, that understanding, you don't allow any trickery to take you off. Just like Paul was telling the Galatians, who bewitched you? That so soon you are removing yourself from the one who saved you, who called you, who redeemed you. We will no longer in that unity fall for any deceit anymore. That's why probably Christ was saying, if it were possible, maybe the very elect will be deceived. But when we get to this fullness, you're not going to allow yourself to be deceived. But when we are able to avoid these deceits, what happened rather is that we would be speaking the truth in love, that we may grow, but speaking the truth in love may grow up in all things into him who is the head, Christ, from whom the whole body joined and knit together by every joint, what every joint supplies, according to the effective working by which every part does its share, causes growth of the body for the edifying of itself, that body, in love. So when we understand that this is the body, and this is Louis speaking, brethren, what do I do here? This is what I know. And it's what I do. And it's what I pray and ask God, please, this is the instrument you got. Use it. That's what I know. And somebody's singing here, and I'm sitting there. And seriously, I'm not jealous, but I wish I can sing like that. But I try it at home, and sometimes when they push it up there, and you see that you are still here, you're going like, when you're going, you get. So when everybody supplies the part of which they are, then the body grows. And then we get into the stature, the measure, and the stature, but the fullness of Christ, which is the unity. So if we're not united, you're not growing, I'm not growing. We're not going anywhere. We need to unite. We need to understand the dynamics that is placed on us. And I'm saying all these things to say that, brethren, the time that we live in, if we cannot unite, we will not survive. We will not. We will not survive. Because if you start reading pages of the book of Acts, and you start hearing things like, and all the disciples were with one accord. Oneness, one mind. That is what will make you feel for me. That is what I would feel for you. And that is how I would think about you. And that's how you would think about me. I didn't know Sister Marie was going to be here. There's actually a song that I would have asked her to sing because I was going through my head. I need you. You need me. We are a part of God's body. It is his will that every need be supplied. That is what he just said. Because which every part does its share. And that share is supplying the need that I got. And my share is supplying the need that you got. I pray for you, and you pray for me. We are a part of God's body. If I try. You're singing, my sister, because this is the message that the unity that Christ is offering us looks like. Brethren, put this in your head. Read the scripture again and see if the unity we're talking about is not for you and I growing together. Because it's one body that is growing. I'm not going to be selfish. I'm going to make sure that I'll be. powerful. And me, I'm powerful. And everybody doesn't know anything. That's not the body growing. It's not the body growing. And it's not going to get you to the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. So you may be doing something good, and then Christ will say, depart from me. And you're wondering, but look at how I was preaching. I was shouting. Everybody heard me. And you were shouting because you want the one who is preaching, everybody watching. You didn't care about them. And if I don't labor because I love you and because I care, this is nothing. It's nothing. Absolutely nothing. And I got even no zero out of it. My brethren, whilst we are not uniting, our foes are uniting. They are. Have you heard about the document called Fratelli Tutti? Fratelli Tutti is one of the encyclical letters of Pope John Francis. And let me quote one thing I like from the document for you. And I'll tell you how dangerous that document is. You can learn something from. He said, radical individualism is a virus that is extremely difficult to eliminate, for it is clever. It makes us believe that everything consists in giving free rein to our own ambitions, as if by pursuing ever greater ambitions and creating safety nets, we will somehow be serving the common good. And I agree with him. That's not going to work. Because that's what I exactly told you. That if I pursue only my ambition to be this, speaking, doing this, and thinking that by having spoken for an hour and I got there and I feel satisfied that I've done something, and I'm not thinking about the common good. What is this for the body? What does this do to my brother? What does this do to my sister? What do they get out of it? Are we going to be communally edified? Or it's just for my own showmanship? No. That individualism won't help us. But I'm quoting Pope Francis because he's talking about this individualism for his own other agenda. And he doesn't like individualism. He wants everybody to come together. Fratelli tutti means we are all brothers. How many of us are brothers? Not everybody is my brother. Not. Please. Whilst you are at the place of unity, one thing that you also have to be comfortable with is division. Not division among us, but we have to be separate from the rest. You have to be comfortable with that. And that is what he is not comfortable with. He is not comfortable that being separate is an offense to him. So we want all of us to be brothers. And all of us in the Hindu, in the Buddhist, in the Shinto, in the Jewish, in the Islamic, we are all brothers. That's what he means. And that is not true. We all belong to the human family. But when Paul started and said, the calling with which you have been called, and the scripture that my sister gave, those who were given the power to become the children of God, even those who believed, those children, those are the ones that you are brethren. So anytime I say brethren, you see, I like it because Christ even was not ashamed to call you and I his brethren. But he wasn't calling everybody his brethren. He wasn't. Until they come into the fellowship, until they accept that ultimate sacrifice, until they believe and receive the Spirit and have the power to become a child of God, then we all jubilate because we got a new addition into our family. So I'm going to end with what they are seeing and how then we have to be able to work on our own unity. It's okay. The Pope, you can look up the document, Vatican dot something. It's fratelli. It's like you're going to write fraternity. F-R-A-T-E-L-L-I. F-R-A-T-E-L-L-I. Fratelli. Tutti. T-U-T-T-I. Look it up. It's a big document. But you will know the direction that this man wants this world to go. Let's all come together. There's no need for anybody to separate us. Don't speak anything that offends anybody. That is where all the hatred laws are coming from. Hate speech. You don't say anything against us. We are all brethren. Stop the evangelism. They call it proselytizing. Stop it. Let everybody stay wherever, because we are all brethren wherever you are. But we know, as long as that communion is working, it's working in against our interest. And so we need to get up and be united and go read Acts chapter 2 and all those scriptures there. Acts chapter 1, 14, Acts chapter 2, 1, Acts chapter 2, 46, Acts chapter 4, 24, Acts chapter 5, 12, Acts chapter 1, 14, Acts chapter 2, 1, Acts chapter 2, 46, Acts chapter 4, 24, Acts chapter 5, 12. You reading how our brethren who've gone ahead, how they united with one accord, one mind, one heart, one God, one faith, one immersion, baptism. And they then can grow to the perfect man, which is the measure of the stature of the fullness of Christ. That is our standard. That is the only place where we reach and we know we have arrived. And that is what we need to endeavor to do. Brethren, I will let my sister come and wind up with that song. You pray for me, I pray for you. We are a part of God's body. Brethren, God be with you. May his name be praised.